day. You get the lower light where it kind of cuts through the atmosphere and it gives everything a kind of an ultraviolet touch to the light. It just looks like sometimes things are just popping. That low sun is just popping. So I've been thinking the last couple days about how I've always had a sense of ferocious impatience, and it's not, I don't know if it really is impatience. Like, I think back to my time of skiing, well, still is time of skiing, but my very initial time of aggressively skiing every day, age 16 to 24 basically. But I was always gripped with the knowledge, the known truth that my time to be able to go do what I was doing, how I was doing it, was limited. In terms of life was going to eventually catch up. You know, age 16 to 24, I'm young, doing whatever, working weird jobs. I was a busser for most of it, you know, so I could work evenings, ski every day. But I knew every single day, and I attacked every single day. I literally knew in my heart that I'd left no stone unturned in terms of taking full advantage of my time. And of all things, you know, people talk about time and money. You know, of all things I'm striving for is just to regain my time back. To, like, time is the most obvious precious thing that is limited. So where am I going with that? So it was a major change when I told this story before, when I got sponsored. I had been sponsored by Atomic for skiing. I got my snowboard in the mail that day. I was now sponsored by Atomic. Like, I was living my dream, so to speak. And then that night, like, the punk snowboarder in me came out, and me and some guys went out poaching, skiing, riding North Face in the dark. 1 lap, 2 lap. On the 3rd lap, I got caught, and then they threw the book at me because I was an ex-patroller, current employee. I already had like 3 offenses, so they kicked me off for 2 years. So it was literally kind of as far as first world problems go, it was a major one. Getting kicked out of your little ski hill haven. So that's when I went to Whistler, ended up meeting my wife there on the chairlift. And it was kind of a love at first sight scenario. Boom. This was March 2003, and by May of 2003, I was living in Canada, essentially, with my new wife-to-be. We ended up getting married that August. But that all being said, I literally had ripped myself from my whole universe. Well, first I got and that's the point, is that it was all me, like, taking accountability for that. It was 100% my decision. Can't blame anyone. Lost my sponsors, lost everything that I had been working towards. So at age 24, I had a hard restart in Canada with this new person. So there was some trepidation to that. You know, it was good, it's great, I'm not complaining, like, everything's gone as good as it could go. But there was definitely some weirdness in my psyche at the time. And it's funny because I'd seen this quote, curiosity is the cure for anxiety. And I was just literally driving and thinking about that, how that, I was having anxiety attacks. Long story short, I had a complete anxiety attack and fled America in a paranoid fit because I didn't want to get drafted to an imaginary draft. And I was convinced America was evil. Besides that, you know, things were good. So I had this anxiety sort of thing going on, but and had all the time in the world. I was unemployed. I was not allowed to work. That really puts a fire under your belt when you're actually not allowed to work. And I'm an able-bodied person, but I'm in this other country, and like, we had initiated the immigration process. I couldn't work, so I filled my time with like reading. I read everything politics. I read the freaking Bible and the Quran and the Book of Mormon, and wrote my memoirs at age 24, this and that. It's funny, I had time on my hands, you could say. But in that phase, I was like, oh my God, I took advantage of having the time. I've like had this impatience with knowing, I don't even know if it's impatience, like, what is the word? It's acknowledging that time is limited. So I have no patience for wasted efforts within that chunk that, you know, is slipping away. And I felt good on how I attacked it and used my time, and I had a major, I existential navel gazing session, which was kind of, I was jarred out of it. I think it was the summer of 2006. So it was good 3 years of like, what am I doing? I had no skills. I ended up running a chainsaw. You know, I could bust a table, but here I am. I couldn't do anything. I wasn't into house building. I had no patience for it. Give me a chainsaw, stick me in the woods. Freaking, I loved it. So for 7 years, I'm running chainsaw. Anyway, it was the second year into that, where I had this epic helicopter crash into the lake in the middle of nowhere, northern Saskatchewan. Crashed into a lake. Don't remember how I got out of the helicopter. Swam to shore. My buddy died in my arms. Blah blah blah. It's a long story. Traumatic story that I've told before. Maybe I'll tell again someday. Point being, that kind of jarred me out of my malaise I had been in, and I was like, holy shit. The solution to that, we were living in Smithers, British Columbia, which is a cool little town, and I wanted to go to Whistler to go downhill biking. So we literally, that fall, the accident was August, and I think November, we drove down to Whistler. We had a friend there. We moved into a place, boom, in Whistler. Like, I can't even believe it. Like, when I was in Alaska, daydreaming of Whistler, like going on vacation. It's the funniest thing, because my buddy, we'd gone there when I was like 19, and we're like, oh, that'd be funny if we like met girls and we married them and lived here. That'd be cool. That was just a complete joke. And here I was, like, literally 4 years later, living in Whistler with my Canadian wife. It's kind of funny as things go. And then Whistler was awesome. So the first winter there, I had busted ass all summer on chainsaw. We got there, and we ran out of money, like, by December. Like, oh shit. And again, I didn't want to go jump into construction. I didn't really know anything else, and my chainsaw work crew had this last job going out in northern Saskatchewan again. So I left Whistler. This is talking about, like, so loving the thing but being able to let it go. I love skiing so much, obviously. Opening day of Whistler, the first time we were living there, I am going to get on a plane in Vancouver to fly to northern Saskatchewan again, where the place of the accident happened. So the accident happened that summer. 2 months later, I flew back to the same, it wasn't the exact same location, it was a different camp in a different spot, but I knew I had to go face my demons, because I couldn't just like dwell and be like, oh, I was in a helicopter crash. Like, I remember meeting people there, and I didn't know what my personality was, but I remember this guy, it had come up in conversation, and he's like, oh, that I'd been in this epic crash like 2 months prior, and he's literally said, he's like, oh, that's what's the deal. Like, it was like hearing that information explained how I was acting, and I wasn't really sure how that was. Anyway, I went back to northern Saskatchewan. It was heinous. It was horrible. -40. Chainsaw stopped working at -38. We would somehow pick up live radio from Vancouver. I don't know how we were getting radio in the we were in buttfuck nowhere. I was the foreman of this local crew of these guys who didn't even speak English. We're picking up radio updates of the skiing in Whistler, and I was out there for like 3 weeks, right up until Christmas. The job ended. It's another long story. For a guy almost wanted to kill me, blah blah blah. Drove back to Pemberton. Boom. I was now back to skiing. So I had the 3 months, I had like 4 months off now, middle of winter. I'm set up. And that's the birth of original Carpathian skis. Was I did a 101-day ski meditation, which I would say is highly recommended for anyone. I had 101 days marked on the calendar, and I was like, well, I'll just go ski every day. That'll be cool. And I did. And with the kind of the intention of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I'm doing it for fun. You try to not think of it. You try to just do it. You know, there's the whole thing. Like, and then you're going skiing. You're like, I'm just going to ski for fun. Versus like, I'm going to ski and try to get some video shot, you know. There's this like almost smugness to like, I ski for the fun of it, which we all do. I don't want to take the time, like I'm so impatient to stop and get a shot. But then I was thinking about this the other day, how it's very interesting. Like, I'll have a very specific picture of a shot in my mind that you're going to get on video of skiing or run or doing something. It could be downhill biking, it could be any action sport, it could be anything really. But I'll get the idea of the vision of the shot, and then I'll be driven to go do the thing in order to get the shot, because it makes a real good excuse to go do the thing, right? And it's not to say, oh, I'm gonna go do it, forget this, but it's like, it's more of a metaphysical thing. You're doing a thing, you're visualizing what you want to go do, and then you're getting the shot, and it's verifying the visualization process. It's a like visualization hack, I guess you could say, is like planning on getting the shot, and then the thing happens. So, wow, it's nice around here. We don't have very many of these days left. Winter is coming in hot, which gets me to what I'm doing now, which I'll mention here in a minute. Boom, 101 ski day meditation, and it was around day 80. I had the like vision of a ski company. I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. And I did it. I launched into it, attack mode. And this is where it comes back to the ferocious impatience, is I had all this pent up energy and experience and knowledge and just general largeness, I guess you could say. I had a lot of stuff that I was trying to pump through the ski company now, and some attitude and some maybe resentment, but not really. It was good. I had good intentions, but I just attack moded. I attack moded it so hard when I came up to Alaska. I should do a click to the video I did at North to Alaska, which was ironic because I was from Alaska. Then here I was doing this epic recon trip back to Alaska as if I wasn't from there, which was a mind twister. I was very impatient in the process, and in the ski building process. Like every time I was like building, as I was like, and like I said, I got into ski building before I was even into like house building or professional construction. So everything was always fast. I was like more about speed and volume than precision. And the very definition of fucking ski building or anything really is precision. And I had the attitude like, yes, I knew precision was needed, but I also knew that if I slapped through a bunch of volume, precision would come out of that by experience of like seeing what you could get away with doing fast, and then realizing, oh shoot, next time I gotta go slower on that because that didn't work. It's kind of always been my tactic. So I did the same thing for trail building at Alyeska. We built like 20 miles of trails. We cranked out like a skeleton of passages across the mountain and let the trails be beat in, but then you kind of see which ones worked or not in the end. Anyway, that's a side note. Patience though. That year I did do my ski building. I had a snow machine, a Rev 151, and it was awesome. And I drove to Alaska, skied around with it, competed in 3 world championship events on my own gear. It was all pretty cool. Almost blew up my marriage in the process because I was running the whole operation on credit cards and just freestyling. And I was selling skis on the way. I was selling for like $300 a pop, and I was just winging it. And then racked up all these credit cards, and then in the process, you know, it was like 15 grand maybe, something. It was just what's the word, impatient spending. I was trying to do it all at once. On the way home, we were almost back to Whistler. You know, it's a huge long drive, epic drive to get back. It's 60 hours driving. We're in Quesnel. We're in this little tiny town. Some of you may know it. I got up on the back of the truck we were at the gas station. Thank God we were in this little town, because I jumped up to the back of the truck to get some oil out of the back, and the headache rack had these like angle iron spikes that stick up. And as I jumped down, I grabbed the spike, and I grabbed it kind of like this, and my wedding ring hooked. You can see the scar right there. My wedding ring hooked on the top of this angle iron thing, and I jumped to the ground, and it sleeved my finger backwards, like skinned it right to the knuckle, upside down. A wad of flesh at the end of my finger bone. And I was supposed to go to work like the next day. We were out of money. It was a problem. I was supposed to go to work the next day. Boom. I can't run a chainsaw with an injured hand. And that seriously pushed my wife to the edge. Pushed me to the edge, my insanity. I was like, oh my God, I just pushed all this effort. It was a 2-month effort, driving to Alaska, doing all this shit. Go, 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 go. And I was back. I was survived. We did it. And boom, now my finger is inside out. It's like, holy shit. And it took 3 weeks of healing, and I got back to it. Point is, I ended up selling the sled. That was 15 years ago, and I knew it too. I knew I had to attack mode. At the point of the story, I had to attack mode the way I did. I can't actually turn anything back, and I'm glad the way I did it, because I ended up we had our first kid like a year later. You know, Rosie was born. Boom. Now I'm not going to be sledding around epic craziness now. And then I launched me into like a solid decade of construction-based workaholism. Like 60-hour weeks were just normal, like 60, 80. I would work 60 at work, another 20 at home on my own shit, because I was homesteading perpetually, it seemed. And ski building fell to the side. Skiing in itself fell to the side. And for a couple of years, I kind of just let it rest. Like, I'm not skiing. That's when we went to Hawaii for the first time. When my daughter was 3, we went to Hawaii for the first time for a winter. Didn't wear ski boots for the first time ever. Didn't experience winter. ever, and it was amazing. It was mind-blowing. It was like, oh my god, there's a whole life outside of skiing. That's good to know. Point is, I'm going to look at a sled right now. That's what I'm getting at. Let's go see how they look.